Boom! We are live, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. It's your boy, Nolan Hawkeye Anthony here. And I hope you guys are having a fantastic week wherever you may be and however you may be listening. We got a jam-packed show for you guys today. I have a very interesting article by Hawk Central that I really want to go over. There is some information in there which your boy and Dean have already talked about ad nauseum. And yes, it is Iowa football recruiting. So we will be checking out the reasons that Chad Lystico has given for Iowa football recruiting being behind. And so, yes, we will be checking that out, and we will be giving you our top 5 players each, myself and Dean, for Iowa to have a successful season, and the stat lines included in there as well. And last but not least, we're going to check out Iowa's schedule and examine the games that are must win for Iowa to have a top tier season. But before we move on, I want to introduce my partner, Dean Freen. Dean, how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing great. Thank you. It's great
to
be
see
here.
You, man. I like the hat a lot.
Yeah. How about the shirt? Can you see the shirt?
Have you ever asked yourself, have you ever thought what, when I ask you that question, what your response is going to be? You know, in other words, have you thought about it before and you're like, I'm going to go like this, or I'm going to go like this?
No, I really haven't. But one of these days, I just might trick you and go, man, it's been a bad day. I just don't even know if I can get through this show.
Honestly, it's good to just keep it authentic. So I love it. I love, just doing it that way. But, every time I've asked that, I've thought about it like, does he have something prepared, or is he just going by the sleeve? But it's all good. It's all good. All right, guys, before we get into this story here, I want to mention going to 247hawkeye.com. And I would like to ask you guys to consider subscribing to the YouTube channel, Nolan Hawkeye Anthony. We're already almost at 60 subscribers. The videos that I've done for the analysis of Iowa football commits, I've gotten retweets from Addison Ostrenga, Jack Dotzler, Jada Montgomery, and Jacob Bostic, which is awesome. It really is. I love that. And so if you want to check that out, and at the very least, like, comment, and share. It means so much when you share. Literally, the top videos in the YouTube, when somebody, just one person, not all it takes is one, when they have shared it out, the video has just exploded. So it is very awesome. And you guys can follow where to follow me and Dean in the description, at 247 Hawkeye on Twitter, yada. All right, let's get into this. We got the reasons that Iowa football is struggling in recruiting, or recruiting slump. And your boy here and Dean have gotten into this a lot. Matter of fact, it's been the #1 story for the past 2 weeks. Now, that's more so because there's not a ton to talk about when it comes to Iowa Hawkeye sports right now outside of recruiting. And it's also plain and simply because Iowa is struggling. They just had the 23rd or 24 ranked class in the country last year. And actually, if you go by pure 247 sports rankings, without the composite, Iowa had a top 20 recruiting class. And so it is very, I don't know if concerning is the right word, but it is something to pay attention to. And finally, one of these websites went over it. And so we are going to dive into it, Dean. Let's look at the #1 reason that Hawk Central has that Iowa is struggling. And by the way, you're going to see a lot of the same things here that you have seen from me and Dean that we have said, but I want to go over some of these reasons that Iowa is struggling in recruiting. Kirk Ferentz's age, 66 as of August 1st, is a significant factor. Now, before I read the first paragraph here, I had not said this yet. And it was somewhat surprising to me because I don't really see it as an issue. I can see why it's an issue, but I don't see it as an issue. In other words, recruits, I can see why they, that it gets into their mind. But for me, I don't, Kirk Ferentz, I fully expect him to say, listen, I have 1 or 2 years left and I'm done. That's it. I don't see him being a Jack A and just bouncing after a season if things don't go well. Dean, when you saw this, you and me talked about this a little bit earlier today.
Mm-hmm.
I guess, what did you think? And then more so than that, how accurate do you think this is of a concern?
Honestly, I think it's very accurate. If you will remember in the article that I had you post, and I'm glad I had you publish it before Chad published his, I did bring this up.
Go and read Dean's article at 247hawkeye.com. It is better than this one. Go ahead.
Yeah. I actually brought this up that they could be using this against him, but I don't know why. Kirk has come out and said that he's healthy. He loves coaching. He wants to stay coaching, and he would coach until he's at least 70, which Chad pointed out. But he said if he felt like this when he hit 70 to 72, he'd continue coaching.
Right.
He said he wouldn't be coaching when he's 78.
Mm. That's pretty old. That's pretty old. Pretty old.
Well, we know Joe Paul overstayed his welcome, and he was in his 80s when he finally was forced out. So you can overstay your welcome.
No doubt.
Even if you're a successful coach. But yeah, this can be a concern to some the teenagers that the recruits, because they're going to look and they're going to say, well, will he be here to see the end of my career? Because I don't want to have to learn a new scheme as a junior or senior. I don't want to have to work for a new coach. I mean, and so Chad does point out something that it might be that Iowa may want to start working toward an exit plan. And,
which you and me talked about. You and me talked about. I said to you that Iowa wouldn't. I think it is time for Iowa to name someone that they are grooming for the job, even if it's not true, to appease the recruits.
Right. Well, I don't think you lied to him. I think if you name somebody, you stick with that guy.
Well, all I'm saying is that they wouldn't have to do it. But, and you're right, it's not good to lie, but it would be a way to fend off the wolves. And we said that way back when, and I do think that is still an option.
Right. And honestly, I think at this point that person to be grooming everybody thought was going to be Brian Ferentz. I no longer believe that.
It's not him.
It's not going to be him. I think we both thought Phil Parker would be a good choice, but he's in his 60s as well.
Right. So if you choose him, you have the same issues as you have with Kirk Ferentz.
Yeah. They're just going to have to go out and bring in somebody that's already on the staff that's in their 40s or, that's going to be around for a while, going to be around for 20 plus years. So,
well, the good news is, Dean, that Iowa has some very, very strong young coaches that, quite frankly, are some of the best coaches at their position group that they coach. If you look at some of the rankings, I can't remember what the site is that has done it on YouTube here, but pretty much every coach or position group that Iowa has had ranked on that, except for strength and conditioning coach, but that's just because Iowa has a new one. Iowa coaches are in the top 25 at their position. And so Dean, I don't think Phil Parker is the answer. I don't think it's Brian Ferentz. Brian Ferentz will have to go somewhere else and do well and then come back. It will not be at Iowa right away unless in the next year or two he just dominates offensively. If he were to do that, I could see something happening because he is that good of a tight end coach to push for that. But the way things sit right now, and things are always fluid, it is. I don't believe it is possible. I think it is more between LeVar Woods, Tim Polasek, who's now at Wyoming, and coaches like that. that have an opportunity. All right, Dean, I'm going to read this real quick, just the first few sentences. We saw this issue used against Iowa toward the end of the Hayden Fry era as well. And I didn't know that, actually. Teenagers and their parents can do the math. Class of 2022 prospects know that if they are committing to Iowa, the number 4 winningest Big Ten coach in history might not be in charge by the time they complete their college career. Now, my argument to that, plain and simply, is you don't know that about any of these coaches. And actually, at Iowa, you have more of a history or example that it is more likely that Kirk would stay than any of the other coaches. And that used to be a positive for Iowa, Dean, but now it might be a negative because he is getting older. I mean, that used to be a huge positive that for Iowa recruiting. You know that you come in, you get Kirk Ferentz. But now, because that's how things work, it's always on a bell curve. You always have it, going this way, this way, and then it starts to come down the impact. So if I were to rate his age, I would say it's about a 3 out of 10 on the concern meter. What would you grade it?
That's about where I'd put it too. Because I know that the recruits are probably taking that in mind, but I don't think it's their primary issue right now.
Right. I don't either. So, all right, here we go. Number 2, generally speaking, Iowa's roster is pretty young. That has an impact. And I got to say, I am tired of using this as an excuse. Now, that is not me saying that it's not true, but I am tired of using that excuse. I'm tired of it because you don't see Ohio State, Wisconsin, or these other schools who are also loaded with younger talent struggling recruiting. And while it might be true, I see it as an excuse for Iowa missing out on certain recruits. And I'm certainly not going to use this argument for Iowa losing out to first-year Illinois, not Ohio State, not Wisconsin, Illinois coach Brett Bielema and Iowa State. I don't give a gosh darn what Matt Campbell has done at Iowa State in one season. It is not okay what is going on losing to Iowa State. It's not. Iowa should rarely lose to Iowa State in recruiting. Plain and simple. Dean, what do you think about this one?
I also decided that was probably a thing because the players are looking for early playing time. And, Iowa's good for early playing time, but if you get too many youngsters in there, you got to wonder how hard these guys really want to work to get their spot and how confident are they in themselves, thinking, do I have a chance to play right away? Because I want to play right away. And then you look at the roster and you think, well, 2 of Iowa's best recruiting classes were the last 2 classes.
Right.
And as we know, and we're all excited about, there's a lot that roster is full of a lot of young talent. And so the next couple of years, this team is going to be awesome.
But Iowa, I guess what I'm asking you is, is this excuse enough for you? Like I said, for me, it's true, but I can't hang my bets on this because, like I said, Wisconsin, Ohio State, it's the same situation as Iowa, but they're doing just fine.
Well, here's the deal: they're winning titles. They're winning. True. They're winning West titles.
That's a good point.
Wisconsin has won a couple of Big Ten titles, represented us in the Rose Bowl, and so the young players here look like, okay, I may have to wait a year or 2 to play, but I'm going to be playing on a contender. I'm going to have a chance to play for the Big Ten title.
Oh yeah.
Iowa hasn't done that except for in 2015, and we had in the last, since we went to this alignment, we've only had 4. We finished second 4 times in the West and won the West once. So That's 5 times. And how many years have we actually been? You know what I'm saying? So
Yeah,
I
I
think
do know what you're saying. Dean
the
ran out of
recruits.
steam there.
Yeah, yeah. The recruits they know that they want to go. And they always want to go to the shiny new toys. They always want to go to the winners. However, these
But
recruits,
Iowa is a winner, Dean. They
Yeah,
are.
I know
They
they are.
have been winning.
Yeah.
By the way, guys, I'm going to be playing, and I'm going to do a watch along for this video. The time Christian McCaffrey destroyed Iowa. I'm not going to be doing the watch along now, but I will be doing it. In the future, I'm going to put that video out. But I just want to play it in the background.
Do we have to relive that misery?
Oh yeah, because it is, for me, in a very weird way, it is very much a part of Iowa's history. It's like that crazy ex-girlfriend. You see her and you're like, you know me, I know you, and it's all good. So, all right, let's move on here. Well, I'll just read a little bit. The Hawkeyes have recruited well in recent years, which is true. And your boy has said 2 things. 1, Iowa should be top 40 in recruiting. And if they do that in this class, I'm fine. I'm fine with it. If they can do that in 2022, great. And secondly, Iowa should, at the very least, just do very well in the state of Iowa. I actually lost my train of thought on the second one, but I'm going to read this. The Hawkeyes have recruited well in recent years. That's a good thing. There also haven't been many program directions of late. That's also good. As a result, Iowa has a slew of young prospects at positions like offensive line, defensive line, linebacker, wide receiver, tight end. Very true. And I'll give you an example. Tight end has a junior in Sam Laporta, and at the very least, at the tight end position, there's 1 starter, 1 major ball catcher, and at most there's 2 tight ends who get a lot of snaps, and the other tight ends are redshirt freshmen and a redshirt sophomore, and even quarterback that make for a narrow path to immediate early playing time. So there you have it. All right.
Hey, let me say this real quick.
Go ahead. Talk to me, Dean. Talk to me.
Okay, I understand us losing out on some of those people because like the Iowa State
and real quick, Dean, Iowa still can get Xavier Nwankpa. And if they do, and they get the top 2 guys in state, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. No, what I was going to say is Iowa State, like, for example, the tight end that we lost to Iowa State, well, they're losing 2 guys this year, 2 of their best.
2 seniors.
2 seniors. So they're looking at going in and playing immediately. We're behind Iowa's tight ends. We got a slew of talent there. They may have to work harder than they want and have to wait to play. So this is what confuses me,
And Iowa can come to them and make outweigh going to in-state Illinois. So, all right, next one here.
Yeah.
3 positions are at the concern. Some Iowa State fan, by the way, guys, your boy got into an argument with Iowa State fans, and I was thinking about reading something, was just like, dude, what you're saying to me, you are doing the exact same thing. There you guys can see the retweet and Coach Bostic, which is the Jacob Bostic's dad, liking one of the tweets. So we're moving in the right direction, guys. We're moving in the right direction. But all right, here we go. I got to pull this up here. The commitments. Let's go back to this. Let's go back to Lysicos. 3 positions are at a concern level, including tight end. And I got to say, Dean, that's true. If you look at Iowa has missed in 2021 cornerback big time. Mm-hmm. And, cornerback is a position that Iowa should not be missing out on because of how well Phil the positions in my eye that Iowa should not miss out on are as follows. And in no particular order: cornerback, linebacker, O-line, and D-line, and tight end. That's 5. Sorry. Mm-hmm. And Iowa has missed out on 2 of those, tight end and cornerback. However, tight end, they just received a commitment from Addison Ostrenga, but they have missed on several recruits. And I'm going to pull it up here so you guys can see. In the 2022 class, there are zero DBs in this class. Now we go to 2021 here, and there are a few, or excuse me, there's Cooper DeJean, who was a great get by Iowa. Great. Had he not gone to such a small school, he would be ranked as high or higher than Xavier Nwankpa. But he was the only DB get in this class. And it's also, Dean, it's also running back. And one of the statements that good old Chad Lysico made was running back is not a position Iowa should be failing at, considering that Iowa runs the football a ton. They should not be failing at that. The statement I was going to make is that an Iowa State fan said that my website, 247hawkeye.com, was copyright of Hawkeye Insider right here, which is not true. I purchased the website. It is all mine, baby. It's all mine. If anything, they will have to buy it off of me someday because it will be worth doing so. All right, Dean, what do you think about that last point from Lysico? 3 positions are at the concern level, including tight end.
Yeah, that's a concern because we didn't get anything last year. This year, we're not getting anything, and we're losing every one of those ones that you've mentioned. We've lost out on. We've lost some tight battles with the recruiting.
Not good.
Like I said in my article, I think it's great that Iowa convinced these guys to have Iowa as their final, and some of them were the final too. But we didn't win those battles. We just didn't, and we lost
Almost
to Michigan
rather
State
not have them in there at all, Dean. In the finals, I would rather just have Iowa not even considered than Iowa be a finalist and lose.
Yeah, but honestly, we lost out to Michigan State this week.
Not good.
I mean, come on, Michigan State's on the downside. They're not going to be what they used to be.
Right. So, yeah, I totally agree. That is a big reason that I put the concern meter on this. All right, let's pick this up a little bit here. Let's get to the juice here. I'm not going to reread that. I already told you guys what it is, but this is the juicy part of this article. And this is one of the reasons that Iowa is struggling on the recruiting trail. The racial bias fallout can't be ignored as a possible factor. And I'm going to show you why that's the case. And the reason that that's the case is actually because of your guy, Chad Lysico. Or he might not be your guy. I don't know. He's not mine. Nice article, but and I'm going to show you guys something here. One of the statements he made, you guys can see Tyler Barnes having a cryptic tweet about negatively recruiting Iowa, which is fine. But, I could see people saying Crimea River, because all is fair in love and war. But this is, I'm going to have to just read this whole thing. While Iowa has done a good job making positive program changes and getting out front, and I don't agree with that. They have not gotten out front. Getting out front is fully denying. If you don't believe it's true, if you have done the investigation and you don't believe it's true, getting out front is denying fully and completely the accusations. Getting out in front would be to sue the guys who are suing you for the allegations that they have against you. That is getting out front. Libel. Saying that they are committing libel or something, slander, something like that. To address the racial disparities brought to light in June 2020, there's no doubt it has had an impact on the Hawkeyes' efforts. Director of Recruiting Tyler Barnes alluded to negative tactics against Iowa in cryptic July 1st tweet that said, recruits, if a school has to negatively recruit nonstop against one of your top choices, stop and think for a second why they are wasting all of that time rather than trying to show you what they are truly about. Which is true. I mean, I understand that. The best way for the Hawkeye program to overcome negative recruiting is to continue to have a high rate of roster retention and graduation among Black players and to keep winning on the field. I totally agree with that. I'm going to have to pull up what he actually said, because I don't want to spend a ton of time going through this, but I'm going to show you guys why recruits are buying into this so easily. And part of the problem is Mr. Lysico. He said to address the racial disparities brought to light in June 2020. And that statement right there is basically Chad saying that they're not allegations, they are true. Not allegations, they are true. Iowa is just responding to the truth. And that is why, if one of the major writers for Iowa sports says that statement right there, why would you expect recruits to be able to shuffle through the noise? It just ain't going to happen. It's not going to happen. And 247hawkeye.com, my website, we were the only ones willing to ask real questions, such as if these allegations were crazy true, why is half the coaching staff at Iowa African American? If they were true, then why is Iowa putting so many African Americans in the NFL and making or helping them become millionaires? If it is so true, then why does Iowa have a top 23 class or top 25 class, and so on and so on? Dean, what did you think about that statement?
He should have put alleged racial disparities. And like I said in my comment, innocent until proven guilty.
Yeah.
And the court's already cleared Kirk Ferentz of any wrongdoing. There is no evidence to show that he was wrong. So they had to drop his name off the suit. I believe, I don't remember who all names are still on there. I know Brian Ferentz and Chris Doyle's names are still on there, but only about half of or 1/3 of the players are still listed on that lawsuit.
Yeah, Cavante Martin Manley has stepped down. My former partner, he has stepped out off of the suit.
Yeah, but anyway, several. I have an email somewhere from Paul that gives the complete details. But somewhere along the line, those guys all dropped out. Kirk Ferentz was already found not to be liable for any of that stuff. So if this continues to move forward, it'll just be against Brian Ferentz and Chris Doyle that I know of. There might be one other person. And actually, I believe in one of the articles that I read, I believe, no, it was one from Paul, the one that Paul gave me. It says that that our current head conditioning coach, strength and conditioning coach, is also named as a defendant in that. And you guys realize that he is a person of color, right?
Right.
So
right. The POC.
Yeah. So that being said, is, I would think that they wouldn't go after him, but they did. They went after him too.
It is an issue. Like I said, Iowa should have, if it was not true, Iowa should have fully and completely denied it, countersued, and that is getting out in front of something. By the way, guys, in the background, what you're seeing are tweets from Iowa State fans. LOL. I love the Iowa fans that show up in Chris's comments. By the way, I was told from Dean that the tweet that I commented on showed up as a suggestion tweet. I don't know why Twitter does that. Actually, I do know why, but I don't need to state why. Mm-hmm. And so I responded. Yeah, it's in the background, not a mention of Iowa at all, just celebrating Iowa State and where we've gone under Campbell. Enter Iowa fan with his small DICK energy. I love it. That's great. That's great. it takes a lot of courage to keep a tweet like that up. Truthfully, I mean, I have way more respect for some of the top, most influential people who tweet something and literally get all kinds of hate from it. All right, let's move on here. It's not exactly time to panic. The first of 2 signing periods doesn't begin until December 5th. Yeah, December 15th. And that's true. That's true. I've already said that many times, and Iowa can still flip many recruits. There's because of what happened with the COOF last year, there's still plenty of guys who will get into their man's bodies and come full stage, and Iowa, with a lower recruiting class going into that period, will be able to pluck out certain guys and have a much better chance of landing them. And I've said this already again, the 8 guys that Iowa has is nice. It's nice. You know, they have a very high 4-star. They have a bunch of high 3-stars. They've got their wide receiver. They've gotten their tight end. I think they'll take one more tight end probably, or they'll carry that over into next year's class. You know, my opinion on that is that if Iowa likes a tight end, offer. Be done with it, because you don't know for sure if you're going to get the guys that you want next recruiting cycle. Yeah, I tend to agree with this. Dean, what do you think?
Absolutely agree. It's time to go out and find the under the radar guys who we can coach up. They're going to find those guys. They'll plug in the holes come after December, after they find out who they've actually signed, and then they'll find out who's going to actually leave after January. So then they'll start filling the transfer portal.
Right. Talent to Iowa and doing great. So there's still plenty of avenues. My panic meter is at about a 6 or a 7. And, you know, we'll see how it goes. There's still plenty of guys on the board to get to. So we will see how that turns out. But make no mistake, Iowa is behind the 8 ball. You know, I said that, you know, look for about 5 guys to commit after June. And I think Iowa has had maybe 2 or 3 guys commit. Usually Iowa has about, 5. That's why I said that. And they did not have that. And so they are behind the 8 ball. So we will see how that goes. All right, Dean, let's move on here to the games in Iowa's schedule that will determine the season. We like to communicate with all Hawkeye fans. It helps us out a lot. And all the other info will be in the description. All right, Dean, I'm going to go with 2 or 3 games, and then, you can choose predominantly Iowa State. I would much rather Iowa do a one-off, one-on, where they play Missouri one year, Iowa State the next, Notre Dame next, and then Iowa State again in consecutive years. But so I'm not choosing, even though that is a massive game, I'm not going to choose, because Iowa has had many games where they have many times when they have lost to Iowa State and had a great season. So, Dean, the first team that I will go with is indeed the first game of the season against Indiana. And here is why. Indiana will be ranked. It is a Big Ten opponent. And if Iowa can go into the major chunk of their Big Ten schedule 1-0, that will be huge. And especially against a ranked team like Indiana, who will go on to play other teams in the Big Ten West and, have a great shot of beating them. You always want to beat team. Number one, you always want to start good. Obviously, finishing good is also great. But more importantly, you want the teams that you beat to beat the teams that are in your conference so that you have that tiebreaker. So I'm going to go with Iowa and Indiana, Dean. The second team that I'm going to choose is Iowa versus Penn State. Huge game. Huge game. And, to be honest, Dean, Iowa and Penn State have developed somewhat of a rivalry in the past 5 years or so,
Mhm.
which I think is awesome. Again, much of the same reasons that I have chosen Indiana for virtually a must-win game. I will say the same thing for Penn State. And going back to Iowa versus Indiana, that is a home game for Iowa. And against Penn State, it is also a home game. Also a home game. Now, with my last pick, and then I'll throw it back to you, Dean. And, you can comment to mine on some of your thoughts and give yours. I almost chose, the 3 games that matter a lot in the Big Ten West are Iowa versus Wisconsin, Iowa versus Northwestern, and Iowa versus Minnesota. Now, I'm not choosing all of those, but those games, and most fans always say that Iowa versus Wisconsin, that decides the Big Ten West. But you know what, Dean? I'm going with Iowa versus Northwestern because as we saw last year, that game was the game that decided Iowa's fate in the Big Ten West. And I'm going to go with Iowa versus Northwestern. They are a bigger rivalry to me than Iowa State is. So I'm going with Iowa versus Northwestern, Iowa versus Penn State, and Iowa versus Indiana to determine Iowa's Big Ten season. What do you got for me, bud?
Okay. I also choose in Indiana because
Nice.
It is the first Big Ten game of the year. Indiana is a good team. There's no doubt about it. We need to come out and get that first win. Absolutely. And that will set the pace. Okay. I thought about Penn State, about having that define our season, but I don't think it is a defining game because we could lose that and still win the Big Ten West.
True.
Okay. So my focus is much like yours. I went with Northwestern.
Woo!
Okay. Because, and for that very reason, they losing that game after we had a 17-0 lead cost us the Big Ten West title.
Right.
Okay. That was, we could have had the West title. Okay. Also, I believe Wisconsin is a key game as well.
Nice.
Because to make the Northwestern game matter, we have to beat Wisconsin because the title is going to go through Iowa or Wisconsin. Everybody says this year. Don't be surprised if Northwestern's in there. I did a lot of reading on Northwestern today, and they're actually going to, even though they've lost a lot, they're in pretty good shape with the transfer portal.
Right.
They recruited well off the transfer portal. And so they're going to be a force to be reckoned with if they can get their act going early and often in the Big Ten. And I'm not as worried much about who was the other.
Minnesota.
Yeah, I'm not as worried as about Minnesota. I think we got Minnesota beat. I'm sure we will.
I agree. And in the background, Dean, I have the poll results from
I see that.
The media. And Iowa got 5 first place votes. And listen, guys, you shouldn't be surprised by that. Wisconsin has been the top team, in recent years. And, in my eyes, Iowa's roster is definitely better than Wisconsin's. It's not even close for me, but the name recognition gets them there, plain and simple. And that's just how it goes. All right, guys, those are the games that will determine Iowa's season. And I thought it would be interesting to wrap up the show here and go over the top players on Iowa's roster and the stat lines that they must have in order for Iowa to have a special season. And, this is it's strange how this works because there's been seasons like CJ Beathard where, the stats were not top tier, but his impact on the field was so strong that, it just catapulted Iowa to one of the most special seasons in recent memory. So, all right, guys, without further ado, let's get into this. Dean, this is going to surprise you, but because they are kickers and punters, I'm going to choose both of them because
Okay.
it's kind of, just two guys of the same coin.
Mhm.
And it as much as you wouldn't think that it matters for Iowa in having a great season. So those two guys, and I'm kind of Ryan Gersonde, and with our big guy Keith Duncan gone, Caleb Shudak is stepping in, and as long as it's Torrey Taylor, the Aussie. I apologize. As long as Torrey Taylor can have a similar season punting wise to what he had last year, Iowa will be golden there. And as long as Caleb Shudak can be about 80 to 90% in extra points, preferably higher than 90%. I mean, that would be great. But definitely 80% in field goals, Iowa will be just fine. And Dean, you can choose the same guys as me, obviously. All right. The next guy I am going to choose is quarterback Spencer Petras. And, I've spent many a times going over Spencer's his faults. And I really think the reason he struggled a lot last year was Iowa not being able to have a full camp. And for me, I have a very clear goal of what stats he needs to have for Iowa to have a special season. And it's 20 touchdowns or more and high 2,000, maybe 3,000 passing yards. If he can do that and keep the INTs down, if he can do that, Iowa will be in golden shape. Now, Dean, I'm not going to choose Tyler Goodson because I want to save that for you. So I guess what I'll go with is I can't choose an offensive lineman because they don't really, have stats besides pancakes. But I'm going to choose Zach Van Valkenburg and the D-line as a whole. The D-line as a whole, if Iowa can get to, I think what it is 20 team sacks, we will be golden. But in order to help Iowa to get to that point, if Zach Van Valkenburg can have anywhere from 7+ sacks, Iowa will be in great shape. Now, the next guy I'm going to choose is Jack Campbell. I think that this guy is a monster, folks. I think he is a monster. I think he is one of the most gifted physically and mentally linebackers Iowa has had come through in a long time. A lot of times Iowa has these guys who are undersized but work incredibly hard and get the job done. But Jack Campbell is 6'5" and is as fast as anybody and moves laterally phenomenal. And if this dude can have 80 tackles, Iowa will be absolutely golden, Dean. And the last guy I'm going to choose is Tyrone Tracy. And I am really looking forward to Iowa and the wide receiver group becoming what you and I were predicting last season. Mm-hmm. And I don't think he will have I think it's possible he has a 1,000-yard receiving season. But for me, if he can have anywhere between 750 yards receiving and 900, somewhere around there, Iowa will be golden. Hopefully he can throw in, 5+ touchdowns and help in the punt return game or whatever, jet sweeps, whatever he can help out with, it will be amazing. I almost chose Nico Raggiani, aka Nico Ragaini, but those are my 5 individuals and the stat lines that they need to have in order for Iowa to have a spectacular season. Dean, what do you have for me?
All right. We're going to have mostly the same thing, but I am going to start with Tyler Goodson in the running game. Okay. Overall, Iowa needs to rush over 100 yards a game. So that's the bulk of that's going to fall on Tyler. He's going to have to get more than 100 yards a game. Because when Iowa has at least 100 yards rushing, they are 51-6.
Nice. Look at Dean pulling out the stats. I like it.
Yeah. Well, here's another stat. When they don't get 100 yards rushing, they're 2-15.
Wow. Wow. That's crazy.
So
wow.
So if Tyler can average over 100 yards a game, which I'm sure he will this year because he'll be the featured back.
Yeah.
And I think as long as he gets 1,000 yards rushing, I think if he gets 1,000 yards rushing, don't look for Petrus to get 3,000 yards passing. But
That's true. That's true. You're probably right on that.
Yeah.
What type of real quick? What type of receiving stats are you thinking for Tyler Goodson this year?
Probably around 300 or 400 yards total.
Yeah, I agree. If he can get to 500, that would be phenomenal. But yeah, starting with 300, that'd be great.
Yeah, that would be. And he may have a couple of passing stats this year. We'll see. They say he did play quarterback some of the time in high school before he was switched to running back, and he can throw the ball and he can throw it deep from what his teammates say.
Right.
The only reason why he hasn't thrown it yet in a game off of the Wild Hawk is because Brian Ferentz hasn't let him do it yet.
Wild Hawk.
He said as much. He goes, if the coach lets me, I'll throw it. He goes, so far the coach hasn't allowed me to do that.
Wild Hawk, baby. I like it. Who do you got next?
I got Zach Van Valkenburg.
Van Valkenburg. Nice.
Yeah. I think he finished the season with 3.5 sacks last year.
Right.
I would like to see him finish the season with more than double that. If he does that, that means he's, and then a lot of pass interruptions, just getting in the backfield, because he's going to be our next best pass rusher like we've had the last couple of years. We need him to get back in the backfield and make some noise. So
I like that, and I agree wholeheartedly with that. And Dean, I think he can go to the NFL and do just fine. He'll be older, but I think that's fine. Who do you got next?
Okay, I'm also going to put Spencer Petrus, because I do believe that this team goes as he goes. Although there's a lot of talent around him, and he did a great job last year of finding ways to win games when he wasn't, on his most spectacular. Even when he wasn't spectacular, they found ways to win. Thanks to Tyler
very
Goodson.
True.
Thanks to Tyler Goodson's running game. But
what type of stats are you looking from this guy?
I'm looking in the high 2000s for him, 20 to 25 touchdowns passes from him. I want to see him have similar stats to Nate Stanley.
Nice.
Okay, if he can do that will say a lot. All right, and then I'm just going to put the defensive line as a whole, because there's only one starter back on that line, and they're going to be the key early in the season. And hopefully they can figure out a way to gel early, because if they can gel early, that'll stop, people like the first game we got Indiana and what's his name? Petrus or Petrus? No, Petrus. I'm sorry. What's his name? The quarterback for Indiana?
Pelix. Michael Pelix, Pelix Jr.
Yeah, he's a pretty good darn quarterback, and he's got some darn good receivers to throw to. So we need the defensive line to get in and do their job, so that interesting stat last year. Oh, I didn't write that down. I meant to do that. Is how many pass breakups that we created last year. We created so many pass breakups by being in the backfield so much.
And it's Iowa coaching very fundamentally, telling their guys to get their hands up if they can't get to the passer. The guys that I think will probably start will be John Wagner, Zach Van Valkenburg, Yahya Black, and I'm blanking on who the other sorry, Noah Shannon. That's probably who your starting defensive line will be. But yeah, Dean, I agree wholeheartedly.
Yeah. And then finally, I'm just going to go with the whole defensive backfield, the DBs, and I'm going to tell you why.
Okay.
And they are ready. By the way, if anybody hasn't noticed in the rankings, they are considered number one in the Big Ten, our DBs.
Oh, yeah.
They have led the nation, or been really near the top of the nation in the last few years in interceptions. We need to continue that trend. We need to continue the trend of leading the nation or being near the top on interceptions, because when we do that, we're going to stop a lot, because that the Purdue's, the Indiana's, those top passing teams, those teams that just like to go pass crazy over us. We need those guys to come through, and they came through last year, and we just need to continue to come through. So those are my takes. If all those come through, like I think they hope they will, Iowa will probably be 12-0, baby.
I like it. 12-0, baby. What a perfect way to end. I like it a lot, Dean. I do like the defensive backfield selection. It is the assortment of talent. In any other year, Xavier Williams would be, a full-blown starter. It is almost an embarrassment of riches back there. And hopefully all these boys get to eat, hopefully they get to eat and really, really show up. And just, final thoughts here on the NHA podcast. With the recruiting, we've gone over it a few times now. It is what it is. I think Iowa can get back in front and really figure this out. But at the worst, they can get into the transfer portal. They can go and get guys there and really make things happen. All right, ladies and gentlemen, be sure to go to 247hawkeye.com. That's 247hawkeye.com. And I really hope you guys consider subscribing to the Nolan Hawkeye Anthony podcast. I'll be putting the Nolan Hawkeye Anthony's YouTube channel. I'm so sorry. I'll be putting Dean's YouTube channel in the link in the description box, so you guys can go find that there. And last but not least, be sure to go to on Twitter. It's at 247 Hawkeye, at 247 Hawkeye. Dean, thank you so much for hanging out with me. I had a great time. And of course, last but not least, BBAP, don't be a pussy, Willow. And facts or feelings, because your feelings don't matter. Love y'all. Go Hawks.
Go Hawks.